So we come in, we hit them from the side, we get blue. Right, from that side. We hit them from the front part, it's green. But if I hit them in the back, it's red. Okay, so I came into a new project. And I have already imported Playmaker. And camera system, what the hell it's called, side machine, and the input system, which is here. The other thing with the input system is I also brought in the custom binding composite. That just makes things a little easier. So that's pretty much where we are, and I have just some animations here with a model so we can see some stuff. Nothing major, totally empty, nothing here. So let's make something small. Let's put a terrain somewhere, and let's create a character. Might as well just use the model. Where is the model? There we go. There's our model. And I'm going to turn root motion off on this one. And I'm just going to line the camera up, kind of face it somewhere around here and align with the view. So this thing needs a character controller. Putting that to 0, mid-move distance. Give it an FSM. So character controller is obviously not sitting right. So we're going to offset that by putting the center up higher. And now we're here. It's pretty good. I'm going to bring this down because I don't like seeing all this stuff. So let's set up a very simple move. Now with the new input system, I would get the move vector. Now you're going to have this error, right? We don't have the component, so we just click on that and it adds it. But we don't have any actions, so I'm just going to click on add actions. And it will create it and put it in the right folder, which apparently I have no idea where that went. So I am going to put that here, and that's it. So what this does though, right, because now I have a whole bunch of these all of a sudden just magically, right? I can select the move, and if I go here, just by clicking on that, it pops it up in here. You can see I can edit these assets. So if you're not used to the new input system, you have action maps, right? We have a UI, and this all came with that sample package, so I haven't built any of this, right? But I mean, it covers pretty much most of the basics. So we have an action map called player, and in player we have actions called move, look, and fire. So what are actions? They are literally absolutely nothing until they're defined as something. So if I open move, it is defined by the left stick gamepad. It is defined as WASD, which has these little subdividings, and it has an XR controller and just a normal joystick, right? Fire is the right trigger on the gamepad, the left mouse button, and so forth. And we can add more here, right? can say we can add one and we can call it jump. So it needs a binding. Just like how these things have various things, this thing needs a binding. So we want to let's say keyboard, and let's use space, and that's it. Right, and if you want to add more things, mouse things, you can do that. But now we have jump, so we can save, or click on auto save if you want. But now you can see we have player jump. And if I get or input get button events, because it's a button, we can say jump, and we'll just put it as a variable here real quick just so we can see it. So if I press space, it turns true, right? Because it's looking for the action jump, and we've set jump to space, right? So that's kind of how that system works. So let's get rid of that. So we want a move vector, and we can store these. Now, just that alone, if we hit play and use the WASD, we can see I didn't store it. So let's, as you see, as I hit WASD, we're getting a movement vector coming in here. And you can make that relative to something, right? So right now it's using the forward of this. I can say use the forward of the camera. Because now if I hit play, if I push W like we're going forward, oh god damn it. If I push like we're getting the 1 and the Z, right? And if I take the camera, bring them over here, see how it's on this side now? I'm still hitting W, I'm hitting that same key, right? And that's because forward is going this direction now. So it's relative to the camera. So if we just add now a controller simple move relative to the camera, we could say we're going to move speed of 3 in this stored vector. There I go. See, so if I push W, he's moving forward. And if I bring the camera over here, and I push W, he's now going that way. So that's all cool. We have this move system, but we also want to get the magnitude. The magnitude is kind of how much is being pressed into a vector. It's not the vector itself. And I'm going to bring in smooth look at direction. So we want this object to look at that same direction we're moving. Right, because now that will be, so just that smooth look at, as you see, he is now looking that direction. So animator wise, let's create a folder. Let's create an animator controller. And let's stick that on him like that. We need the animator window. And this thing needs a float. we'll give it one called speed. And and you can do this with a blend tree or two states. It really doesn't matter, but I'm going to use a blend tree. And name this locomotion. I think I spelled that wrong. And in this, so if you double click it, you can go in it. I click it. I'm using the parameter speed. And you can change it to different ones. I'm just going to use the 1D. And I'm going to add two motions. So this is the how much of the speed we're using. So let's go basic move. We have it idle. And you can put it either slot, it doesn't matter. So idle if the speed is 0. And then let's do a run. If the input is 1, go there. So if I hit play on that and move this slider, right? Okay, so now that we have that, right, because we're storing the magnitude of how much of a vector we're pressing. So we can now set that amount to our speed every frame. You can also add a damp time if you want, so it's not instant. But that is, oh, see how he's just doing it a bit. So what that is here is this needs to loop. We probably don't need loop pose. We might. We'll see how it looks. So there we go. Now he's not running very well. His feet are going pretty quick. So I mean, like, you could do root motion. That might make things a little rough. But instead, I'm just going to up the speed. Let's go like 6. Let's double it. That might be a little better. Oh yeah. So there we have that. So let's set a camera up. And just using this sign machine, we're just going to use a virtual camera. And the virtual camera is going to follow the player, and it's also going to look at the player. And the follow offset, we want this thing elevated. Just kind of play with those to see where it is. The look offset, I'm going to bring that up just a little bit so we're not looking right at his feet. Alright, so let's see what that looks like. Whoa, whoa. And as you can tell, that's pretty wild. Right, and we don't want we want simple follow with world up. And what else do we want on that? Oop. There we go, world space for this style. Now we have that little bit of turning that goes with it. I'm going to drop this dampening. All this dampening can all be turned off. We don't care about no stinking dampening. Right now we have a much better thing following us, all nice and pretty. Alright, so with that, let's create something. Let's create a cube. Oh, where'd my cube go? Bring it over here. Alright, we have a cube. And this cube is going to do stuff. So it needs a FSM. And it's going to be a trigger. So I'm marking it as trigger. And let's use a trigger event. Alright, so what we want, okay, let's do this. Well, let's go into our project. So let's make a few materials. Or no, let's just make that material. There we go. Stick that. Oh, damn it. Open up that. There we go. So in here, we're going to collide with player. We're going to send an event that we have hit. And we're going to store the object, which is going to be the player himself. And we need to do some stuff, right? Because just doing that alone is fine, right? I mean, that there, as long as we mark our tag player, we can go back to our cube and watch it, and this works. So if that was an enemy, you know, of course it's making a liar out of me. Oh no, it did work. It's hitting that. We just, apparently I'm an idiot and I didn't change this over to hit. Right, so I come over and I hit it, right? And it's like, oh, you got hit by this guy. Okay, cool, but that's, you know, and that maybe that's all that's needed. But what we want to do is we want to know if the player hits our backside. So I want to get I'm going to use our center. So I need more or less a collider. But we don't have a variable called collider, so let's get one. So we're going to make an object. But this object isn't an object, it is a Unity engine collider. Alright, because now in here I can get component of ourselves and get our collider. Now we have our collider. And when we come over here, we can get property of our collider. We can get the we don't want the position, we want the center. Let's see, I might have to change it to a box collider. Yeah. Apparently it's different with different type of colliders. We don't have center, which is easy enough to do. You just go in here and change it from collider back to Unity engine. I'm just going to go box collider, which is under B's right there. There we go. Now we can say get component collider. Now it's a box collider. So center vector. We have a center point, and we also need to get position of what we hit. which we've stored it as player, so that's player's position. So we have two vectors. So we need to do something to that. And we're going to take the player's position to our center, and we're going to subtract those. And that's going to give us a direction. And that's going to be a direction looking at the player from our center point. So, right. So now we want to, normally it'd be say get forward, but we don't have that action because I just downloaded Ecosystem. So transform direction. And we want to say take our forward, which is 1 on the Z. So now we have our forward position, which is going to be this. And we now want a vector 3 operator. And we should vector 3 normalize. So let's take the direction and normalize it. Make sure to put that kind of towards the top. So let's take our forward and the direction. And we're going to do a thing called dot product, which comes back as a float. Okay. Now, what that will do is we can now do a float compare. But before we get there, let's just see what that looks like. So if I come in, say on the side, we get the player, we get our center point. Just saying 0, which is normal. I suppose we could just get position, but we get our, oh, maybe it is 0 because that's probably where he's at. Anyways, we get our direction. We have a direction here. So we normalize it and we transform our direction, which he's facing forward, so it's going to come back the same anyways. And then we get a dot product of negative 70.77. Which I know that sounds weird. Okay, let's take this, move him over here. Let's make sure that center's working, and let's spin him. Okay, so he's facing in the blue arrow, so he's facing that way. So if we come in from behind and we touch it in the back. Oh, let's go to our trigger here. It's still, okay, we're gonna owner and our position. There, now let's just take our position instead. Let's get rid of the center and the collider, since it's giving us issues. Right? Now a dot product goes -1 to 1. It's more or less based on two directions on how even they are facing each other. So here we have, okay, we have our position, we have the player's position, we get the direction, we get, the forward, we get the dot, it's negative 0.71. Right, so that more or less tells us is if we are, if dot is, we'll say negative 0.5, if it's less than that, we got hit in the back. Should probably go a little less. Let's go negative 0.6. Okay, but then let's add another float compare. And if dot is, we'll say, equal to 0, but with a tolerance of 0.6, so it can now technically go to negative 0.6, but as high as 0.6. And if it's equal, hit on sides, get rid of the less, and then let's do another float compare. And if it is 0.6, if it's greater, hit on front. So let's go like this. If we got hit in the front, and just so we can visualize this, let's set our color to, let's go red. And then I'm going to finish and go back here so we can keep hitting them over and over. And we hit on the sides, let's go with blue. And if we get hit on the front, let's go with green. And then just to help visualize this cube a bit, let's add a sphere and move him to the front so we can see which way he's facing. Alright, so we come in, we hit him from the side, we get blue. Right, from that side, we hit him from the front. I should have disabled this collider. Would have been smart. It's green. But if I hit him in the back, it's red. Green, red, blue. Right, so we can now tell what side we're actually hitting this unit on. And it doesn't matter which way the cube's facing, right? That's part of the logic we built. Is if we come in from the side, it's blue. We come in from the front now, it's green. Come in from the back, and it's red. So there we have, so far, a simple movement and a trigger system that tells us what side of the object we hit it on, which can, we'll get into how that can affect various things. Then the other thing that we could do is we could add another thing in here where if this thing is, say, moving and it hits the player's back, there could be another level. Dun, dun, dun. So anyways, it's probably good for now.